For 9 years, his daughter was gone. And when this millionaire finally learned the truth, it wasn't what he imagined. Have you ever wondered how far a parent's love can stretch? Or what happens when hope is tested for nearly a decade? What shocking secrets could hide behind a disappearance? And how would you face the truth if it left you speechless? This is not just a story about loss. It's about what you find when hope refuses to die. Listen closely, and you'll discover lessons of resilience, forgiveness, and the powerful bond of family that can change everything. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you never miss the next emotional, inspiring story of life, love, and shocking truths. Before everything changed, his life seemed perfect. A successful millionaire, respected in his community, admired for his sharp mind and generosity, he had built a life many would envy. Yet, the true pride of his days wasn't in his achievements. It was in the small moments with his young daughter. Mornings were full of laughter, school drop-offs, and quick hugs in the driveway. Afternoons meant baseball practice, followed by ice cream cones that melted faster than their smiles. Evenings were reserved for bedtime stories, where imagination turned ordinary nights into adventures they shared together. It was a life most Americans would call good, comfortable, joyful, and full of love. Then, without warning, everything shattered. One ordinary day ended in an extraordinary silence. His daughter was gone. No clues, no explanation, just an absence that would stretch for 9 long years. Every routine vanished, replaced by anxiety, fear, and the relentless search for answers that seemed always just out of reach. What he would uncover in the years to come wasn't just shocking. It challenged everything he thought he knew about love, family, and the limits of resilience. This isn't merely a story about loss. It's about the unexpected truths that can reshape lives, and the miracles that sometimes appear when hope refuses to die. It was the kind of morning you don't remember because everything feels normal. The millionaire poured his coffee, the rich smell filling the kitchen. His daughter sat across the table, hair still messy from sleep, giggling about something she saw on her phone. They had their usual quick hug before she grabbed her backpack and ran out the door. He thought he'd see her again that evening, like always. But that night, flashing red and blue lights painted the front of his home, and the word missing was suddenly more than just a story he'd heard on the news. The first thought in moments like this isn't always panic. It's confusion. Maybe she's at a friend's house. Maybe she lost track of time. The mind clings to simple explanations because the alternative feels too big to process. But minutes turned to hours and hours into dread. He replayed every word they'd spoken that morning, searching for clues in a conversation that had seemed so ordinary. That's the cruel thing about life. It can change forever without giving you the courtesy of a warning. Neighbors gathered outside, their faces pale under the harsh streetlights. Some offered comfort, others asked questions that made his stomach twist. Did she say anything strange? Was she upset? He didn't know what to say. In that moment, money, status, the label of millionaire meant nothing. He would have traded every cent for a single phone call from her. The human heart doesn't care about wealth when the people it loves are missing. That night, the house felt bigger and colder than ever. Her bedroom light was still on, her bed still unmade. A sweater she'd worn the day before was draped over her chair, as if she might walk back in and throw it on again. It's strange how the smallest objects can hold so much weight. They're not just things, they're proof that someone was here, someone who now isn't. He thought about all the times he'd been too busy for long conversations, too distracted to notice the little details of her life. Now, he would have given anything to hear her voice talk about nothing at all. That's the irony of loss. It makes the ordinary precious. And when something's taken suddenly, you realize you were living in moments worth cherishing, and you didn't even know it. As the hours passed, the reality began to sink in. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. She hadn't simply wandered off. Something was wrong. The pit in his stomach grew heavier with each unanswered call, each door that opened to say, "We haven't seen her." He could feel the clock ticking, even though no one could hear it. The police began their questions. Where was she last seen? Who was she with? Had anyone been acting suspicious lately? He answered everything as best he could, but every answer only seemed to open more questions. He tried to stay calm, but deep down he knew. This was the day that split his life in two. The days before she vanished, and every day after. In the stillness of that first night, he stood at the front door, staring at the street. Somewhere out there, his daughter was missing. Somewhere out there, someone knew what had happened. And somewhere inside him, a fire was starting to burn. A determination that would not fade, no matter how long the search would take. And yet, he had no idea that the first 48 hours would bring twists he could never have predicted. The first 48 hours felt like a blur, a mix of frantic energy and hollow silence. Friends, neighbors, and even strangers pitched in, posting flyers and scanning the streets. Helicopters hovered overhead, their searchlights cutting through the night like piercing questions no one had answers for. Every tip, every lead, felt like a fragile thread he clung to, hoping it might pull him toward his daughter. Yet, with every dead end, hope wavered, replaced by the gnawing fear that each moment lost was another chance slipping away. He remembered walking from street to street, shaking hands with strangers who promised they'd help. Some genuinely tried, others offered excuses or faded into the background after a day or two. Every interaction was a lesson in patience and disappointment, and each call he made felt like throwing a pebble into a vast, dark ocean, waiting for a ripple that might never appear. His heart was heavy, but he couldn't stop searching. Not yet. Police coordination became a constant hum in the background. Questions about her last movements, friends she might have spoken to, or places she might visit were repeated over and over. He answered with as much clarity as he could muster, but even that felt shallow compared to the depth of his worry. The millionaire's usual control over life was gone, replaced by a raw vulnerability, a reminder that wealth couldn't buy certainty when a child was missing. In the midst of chaos, one call arrived that would shift everything. A voice on the line hinted at information no one else had noticed. It wasn't a promise. It was a suggestion, a trail that had been overlooked. Suddenly, all the noise of helicopters, posters, and frantic searches faded into the background. He leaned into that voice, clutching it as if it were a lifeline through the storm of uncertainty. Every step he took after that call was measured, cautious, yet fueled by renewed hope. He reviewed every detail he'd collected, scrutinized every lead from the past, and revisited every place she might have been. Even the smallest clue, a misplaced object, a familiar scent, a memory recalled by a neighbor, became a potential breakthrough. His mind sharpened, realizing that perseverance was the only way forward. Sleep became a stranger. He spent nights on the phone, coordinating with authorities, rechecking neighborhoods, calling everyone he could think of. The emotional toll was immense, yet it was balanced by a stubborn resilience. Every time despair threatened to creep in, he reminded himself that each hour counted, that giving up was never an option when the truth might be just around the corner. The search took him beyond familiar streets into areas he rarely visited. He saw communities he'd never connected with before, discovering both the kindness and indifference of strangers. Some shared stories that warmed his heart. Others only deepened the mystery, introducing possibilities he hadn't considered. Each encounter reshaped his understanding of the journey he had embarked on, reminding him that searching for truth often reveals as much about yourself as it does about the missing. Amid all this, the world continued spinning around him. His office, his responsibilities, and the millionaire image he projected seemed irrelevant. The only thing that mattered was finding his daughter. Each passing hour was measured in heartbeats, not minutes, and the intensity of the search carried him forward, fueled by love and fear in equal measure. And yet, even as he chased these leads, he would soon encounter false promises that could make a person question reality itself. In the days that followed, tips poured in from everywhere, some from well-meaning strangers, others that felt cruel or misleading. Every call, every message held a flicker of hope, only to crash when nothing came of it. One lead sent him hundreds of miles across state lines, chasing a rumor that seemed solid, only to find empty streets and locked doors. Each dead end made his heart heavier, yet he couldn't stop. That same determination that built his fortune now fueled his relentless search for truth. He began to notice patterns. Promises made lightly, tips offered without verification, and strangers who vanished once they realized the situation was serious. Even friends sometimes fell short, unable to sustain the emotional weight of the hunt. Every broken promise stung, teaching him that trust is precious, especially in moments of heartbreak. He began taking notes, documenting every lead, realizing that details overlooked could be the key to something life-changing. At night, he replayed each failed lead in his mind. He imagined what could have happened, who might have been involved, and where she could have gone. The imagination, usually a source of creativity in business, now became both a blessing and a curse. It allowed him to think of possibilities no one else had considered, but it also tormented him with visions of danger or betrayal. The emotional roller coaster was unrelenting, yet he clung to hope as the only anchor. Some tips were outright scams, people looking to profit off his fear or his wealth. Others were innocent mistakes, good-hearted folks who misremembered or miscommunicated. Sorting through these false trails became a daily challenge. He learned quickly to weigh evidence carefully, verifying before acting. It wasn't just about moving fast. It was about moving smart, balancing urgency with clarity in a time when emotions ran high. In one instance, a lead pointed him to a small town where a child matching his daughter's description had been reported. The local authorities welcomed him, guiding him through neighborhoods and schools. Hours passed, and yet the trail ended in disappointment. Still, he discovered small, unexpected lessons in each place he visited. How communities rally around missing children, the quiet resilience of families supporting one another, and the importance of never giving up. As the weeks turned into months, he realized that false leads weren't entirely wasted. Each wrong turn, each heartbreak, taught him to sharpen his instincts, to recognize patterns in the information he received. He developed a system, noting every tiny detail: names, locations, dates, times, even the tone of voice of those offering help. This diligence began to pay off in ways that wouldn't be immediately obvious but were setting the stage for a breakthrough. Emotionally, it was exhausting. Nights were sleepless, filled with replayed scenarios and anxious calls. Friends began to drift away, unable to witness the relentless quest without feeling the weight of despair themselves. Yet, one stranger remained, someone who refused to let hope die. That person's unwavering support became a quiet lifeline, a reminder that sometimes help comes from the most unexpected places. Amid the setbacks, he realized that perseverance wasn't just about stubbornness. It was about learning, adapting, and believing that truth, no matter how hidden, can always be uncovered. Each disappointment became a lesson, each misstep a guidepost for what to do next. And in that realization, he began to see a glimmer of something more, a lead that would challenge everything he thought he knew. And that glimmer would soon lead him into the harsh light of public scrutiny, where every move would be observed. Almost immediately, the search spilled into the public eye. News crews parked outside his home, cameras capturing every anxious glance, every restless step. Reporters speculated, neighbors whispered, and suddenly, being a millionaire felt more like a curse than a shield. Headlines questioned what he might be hiding, suggesting secrets where there were none. The pressure was relentless, and the world seemed to watch every move with judgment in their eyes. Social media amplified the stress. Every post, every comment became a ripple of speculation. Some offered encouragement, but many were cruel or intrusive. Even well-meaning friends occasionally shared details publicly, unintentionally complicating the investigation. He learned quickly that visibility could be dangerous. Privacy, he realized, was a luxury no longer afforded. Every choice, every action was magnified, dissected, and debated. Amid the scrutiny, he discovered the fragility of perception. Strangers assumed they knew the story, the reasons, and even his motives. The Millionaire label brought assumptions he never asked for, overshadowing the pain of a father searching for his missing daughter. He saw firsthand how society can equate wealth with control, power, or responsibility, forgetting that a parent's love doesn't follow the rules of fortune. He struggled to balance public attention with the private anguish gnawing at him. Every interview, every press statement required careful words, not just for the search but to protect the fragile hope he clung to. It was exhausting, draining, and emotionally taxing. The world seemed to demand strength while offering only scrutiny. Yet, he pressed forward, learning resilience in a crucible few could understand. Even friends within his circle began to doubt or criticize. Whispered accusations suggested he wasn't doing enough, or that his wealth made him incapable of genuine concern. That stung, but it also sharpened his awareness. He realized that in moments like this, trust must be earned, and skepticism is often a reflection of fear rather than malice. This clarity would guide him in the days to come. Small victories became crucial. A tip verified, a lead investigated, a witness found willing to share her sighting. These moments provided hope, however fleeting. He kept careful records, notes, photographs, and timelines, building a method out of chaos. The discipline was grounding, a reminder that even in the public eye, he could exert control over the search itself. The world watched, but he learned to filter the noise. Focus shifted from outside judgment to internal determination. The lessons were subtle: persistence in the face of public scrutiny, patience under pressure, and the quiet strength of unwavering love. He saw that life under the spotlight could break a person, or shape them into someone stronger, more deliberate, and more resilient. And just as the scrutiny seemed unbearable, someone close delivered a blow he never anticipated, forcing him to question everything he thought he knew. At first, calls and messages came in a steady stream. Friends checked in daily, offering help, hugs, and words of encouragement. They shared memories, offered advice, and tried to comfort him with stories of hope. It felt like the world had momentarily paused, giving him space to breathe amidst the chaos. Every gesture, no matter how small, became a lifeline, a reminder that even in darkness, human connection could bring light. But as days turned into weeks, the calls became less frequent. Texts went unanswered. Visitors stopped coming. The support that once felt unshakable began to crumble. It wasn't intentional cruelty. Life moved on for them, and grief has a way of isolating those not directly affected. He began to feel the sting of abandonment, realizing that even the closest friends sometimes struggle to sustain their presence through prolonged hardship. The silence weighed heavily. He noticed the empty chairs at dinner, the unanswered phone, the quiet that replaced shared laughter. Loneliness settled in, deep and persistent, like a shadow creeping into every corner of his home. Yet, within that silence, he found a strange clarity. Without distractions, without the comforting noise of companionship, he began listening more to his instincts, his memories, and the faint whispers of hope that refused to die. One unexpected visitor changed everything. A stranger, persistent and unwavering, refused to disappear. They checked in daily, provided insights, and never judged his methods or choices. This person became a quiet anchor, a reminder that sometimes support comes from places you never anticipate. They reinforced the lesson that in any journey, especially one as harrowing as searching for a missing daughter, loyalty and resilience are priceless. He reflected on the nature of relationships and how hardship often reveals true allies. Some friends fade not out of malice, but because they cannot endure the weight of another's pain. Yet, this experience taught him to cherish those who remain, those willing to weather storms without complaint, and to recognize that even a single dedicated companion can make a profound difference. Every day without her, he also learned patience. Human connections ebb and flow, but the search could not pause. His daughter's absence demanded focus, determination, and the discipline to continue, no matter the quiet around him. In this silence, he strengthened not just his resolve but his understanding of love, loyalty, and the value of true friendship. The fading friendships also forced him to examine himself. How would he support others in their hardships? How could he ensure he was present when others struggled? This reflection became as important as the search itself, shaping him into a man more aware of the fragility and resilience of human bonds. Amid the solitude, he discovered small moments of inspiration, memories of her laughter, photographs tucked away in drawers, the echoes of bedtime stories that fueled his determination. Even as friends disappeared from view, the bond with his daughter remained unbroken, a compass guiding every choice, every step, and every hour of the ongoing search. And just when he began to wonder if hope was fading like his friends, an unexpected ally arrived. Someone who would shift the course of the investigation in ways he never imagined. Out of nowhere, a retired detective reached out. No payment, no strings attached, just a genuine offer to help. At first, he hesitated. Trust doesn't come easily after months of disappointment. But something in the detective's calm voice, the way he asked precise questions, hinted at experience and intuition honed over decades. It was the first sign that perhaps the tide was about to turn. They began revisiting the case, poring over details everyone else had dismissed. Photos were scrutinized, timelines re-examined, and small discrepancies that seemed insignificant before now screamed for attention. The millionaire learned quickly that expertise often lies in noticing what others overlook. The detective taught him to see patterns where chaos appeared, to connect the dots others assumed were unrelated. Working together, they discovered overlooked leads, a neighbor's vague memory, a parking ticket filed years ago, a photograph that seemed innocent but now held significance. Each small revelation brought a glimmer of hope, and with every connection made, the puzzle slowly began to take shape. It became clear that patience, combined with the right guidance, could turn despair into progress. The millionaire marveled at the detective's approach. Instead of rushing, he measured each step, analyzing motives, alibis, and potential blind spots. It was a lesson in strategy and precision, showing that even emotional crises demand methodical thought. By combining relentless love with careful planning, they created a search that had structure, focus, and a real chance at success. The detective also emphasized perspective. Sometimes, he said, the truth is hiding in plain sight. You just have to look with fresh eyes. That simple phrase became a mantra. Suddenly, what had seemed like dead ends were reframed as clues awaiting interpretation. Small details, the position of an object, the timing of a call, a casual comment, gained enormous significance in the hunt for his daughter. Through long nights of investigation, they began uncovering contradictions in previous reports. Witness statements that hadn't matched, locations that didn't add up, and rumors dismissed too quickly were now being revisited. Each correction, each reevaluation, inched him closer to understanding what had really happened. He realized the truth was often buried under layers of assumptions and oversight. The partnership also offered emotional support. In moments of despair, the detective's calm presence reminded him that hope wasn't foolish, and that resilience was a skill cultivated, not an innate gift. The millionaire began to trust not only the process but also himself, learning that collaboration could strengthen determination instead of diluting it. Together, they traced leads to places that had never been searched before. Every detail, no matter how small, was cross-referenced and analyzed. It was exhausting work, but with each step, the invisible threads of a long-hidden story started to weave together. Patience and strategy became the pillars of their relentless pursuit. And then, one quiet evening, a subtle clue pointed them toward a place that neither had considered before. A location that would change everything about the search. Months turned into years, and every sighting, every whisper of her presence felt like a heartbeat of hope. Sometimes it was a fleeting glimpse, a description that matched her perfectly, only to vanish into uncertainty. Each false alarm tugged at his emotions, mixing elation with heartbreak in a rhythm he could not escape. Yet, he refused to give up, learning that resilience is often forged in the fires of repeated disappointment. He traveled to distant towns, followed anonymous tips, and spoke with strangers who had no reason to lie but whose memories were imperfect. Each step was a delicate balance between hope and caution, optimism and the fear of another dead end. The search had become more than a pursuit. It was an odyssey that tested every facet of his patience, love, and strategic thinking. There were days when despair crept in like a shadow, whispering that perhaps she was lost forever. But then a small detail, a familiar laugh remembered by a neighbor, A school record tucked in a dusty file rekindled determination. He realized that chasing shadows often meant trusting instincts, valuing small leads, and embracing uncertainty with courage. Sleep became a rare commodity. Nights were filled with analyzing maps, reviewing old photographs, and revisiting conversations. He learned to read between the lines of every piece of information, understanding that sometimes the truth hides in the gaps, in what isn't said, and in what seems insignificant. The hunt required a combination of intuition, logic, and emotional endurance. Along the way, he encountered moments that reminded him why hope matters. A child who looked like her in a far-off town. A woman who claimed to have seen someone matching her description. Each encounter, whether real or mistaken, added layers to his understanding of the journey. They taught him patience, the value of meticulous observation, and the importance of perseverance when facing the unknown. The emotional toll was immense. Friends came and went, public scrutiny continued, and loneliness settled in deep. Yet these hardships molded him. He learned that strength is not the absence of fear, but the courage to continue despite it. Each setback became a lesson in resilience, each false lead an opportunity to refine strategy. Then, one day, a letter arrived at his office. No return address, just his name, neatly written on the envelope. Felt like a spark in a long, dark tunnel. Inside was a brief message, accompanied by a photograph. Small, unassuming, yet enough to make his heart leap. Could this be the proof he had been waiting for all these years? The letter reminded him that truth often appears in unexpected forms. It could be a tiny object, a simple gesture, or a single piece of evidence. For years, he had been chasing shadows, but this small clue promised clarity, a possible path out of the uncertainty that had consumed his life. And so, with renewed hope, he prepared to follow the trail, unaware that the journey ahead would take him to places he had never imagined, and reveal truths that would shake him to his core. The envelope was simple, almost unremarkable, yet it carried a weight heavier than any briefcase he'd ever held. No return address, just his name written with careful precision. His hands trembled slightly as he opened it, a mix of anticipation and fear swirling inside him. After all these years, after every false lead and heartbreak, this could be the clue that changed everything. Inside was a short message, concise but precise. No grand explanations, just a few carefully chosen words that hinted at her whereabouts. Alongside it was a photograph. A girl, familiar in the curve of her smile, the tilt of her head, the way her eyes reflected light. His pulse quickened. Could it truly be her? After 9 long years, could hope finally be real? He studied the photograph relentlessly, noting details that others might overlook. Her clothing, the background, even the way she held herself, all suggested a story he hadn't known. Someone had taken care to ensure she was safe, yet hidden. This revelation brought a mixture of relief and heartbreak. She was alive, but still out of reach. The mystery deepened with every passing moment. The message hinted at protection, not confinement. Someone had deliberately kept her away from him, but with what motive? Love? Fear? Regret? He couldn't yet know. But the clarity of her being alive sparked a determination that eclipsed years of doubt. Every prior disappointment now felt like preparation for this very moment. He shared the letter with the retired detective, who analyzed every word, every nuance, every shadow in the photograph. Patterns emerged, suggesting locations, possible contacts, and even the mindset of those who had orchestrated her hidden life. Together, they began to trace the leads, understanding that the smallest clue could unlock the entire puzzle. Emotionally, he was raw. Tears threatened to spill, a mix of relief and anguish. The journey that had consumed his every thought, every action, now presented the possibility of reunion, yet also the challenge of navigating the truth carefully. He realized that patience and empathy would be as crucial as determination and intelligence in the coming steps. The photograph became a touchstone, a reminder of what had been lost and what might still be gained. He spent hours memorizing every detail, crafting a plan that balanced caution with urgency. Each observation became a guide, a strategic insight that could lead him closer to the moment he had dreamed of for nearly a decade. As the days passed, he began to follow the breadcrumbs hidden within the message and image. Each step forward was deliberate, cautious, yet fueled by a renewed sense of hope. The search had shifted from frantic desperation to focused purpose, a controlled pursuit that combined intellect, instinct, and unwavering love. And just when the path seemed cautiously clear, he would face a dangerous journey to a place that was far from welcoming, where answers awaited, but the truth might be more shocking than he ever imagined. Following the clues meant traveling to a town that felt foreign, even though it was still within the country he knew. Streets unfamiliar, faces unfamiliar, and a quiet tension that made every interaction cautious. Locals avoided questions, doors stayed closed, and the weight of his daughter's absence made each step feel heavier. It wasn't just a journey. It was a test of courage, patience, and emotional endurance. He arrived with the retired detective at his side, their presence deliberate but discreet. Every glance, every casual question was measured. They navigated the town carefully, understanding that some secrets were guarded fiercely, and that rushing could ruin the chance to uncover the truth. This was a delicate balance. Push too hard, and doors slam shut. Push too lightly, and time is wasted. The town seemed ordinary at first glance, but subtle hints suggested hidden lives and silent stories. A well-tended garden behind a fence, a curtain slightly pulled aside, whispers that disappeared when they approached. Each small detail became a piece of the puzzle. He realized that observation, patience, and intuition were now his greatest tools, far more valuable than money or influence. Despite the tension, moments of humanity emerged. A child waved from a distance. A shopkeeper offered directions without realizing the importance, and small acts of kindness reminded him that hope often hides in the simplest gestures. Each interaction was a lesson. Empathy opens doors that authority cannot, and patience reveals truths that force cannot force. The investigation brought frustration. Several leads led to dead ends or misinformation. Some townsfolk refused to cooperate, suspicious of strangers probing into private matters. Yet, the millionaire remained focused, his love for his daughter stronger than fear or exhaustion. Every obstacle reinforced the lesson that persistence in the face of resistance is essential when the stakes are high. Then, at the edge of town, an elderly woman agreed to speak. Her demeanor was cautious but kind. She had noticed patterns, subtle signs, and small inconsistencies over the years. Her recollections were patchy but invaluable, confirming suspicions and pointing toward the next step. He realized that sometimes guidance comes from those who quietly observe, not those in positions of power. Her insights led to a hidden corner of the town where no one ventured often, a place that had remained unnoticed for years. Each detail corroborated the photograph and the mysterious letter, gradually forming a clearer picture of where his daughter had been and why. It was a reminder that answers are often in plain sight, but only the observant can see them. Emotionally, the trip was draining. Anxiety and hope intermingled in every conversation, every glance, every turn of the road. Yet, the journey strengthened him, reinforcing the resilience and patience that had carried him through years of searching. Each hardship now felt like a necessary step toward discovery. And as the clues converged in this unwelcoming place, he began to uncover fragments of a story that would challenge everything he believed, revealing a truth that had been carefully hidden, yet always present. As he pieced together the fragments of information, a clearer picture emerged. Each small detail, the photograph, the letter, the woman's recollections, fit together like puzzle pieces forming a shape he hadn't imagined. He began to understand that his daughter had been living under another name, in a life carefully orchestrated to protect her from dangers he hadn't yet uncovered. The realization brought both relief and confusion. Relief that she was safe, but confusion over why no one had reached out, why the truth had been kept from him. Someone had been protecting her, shielding her from circumstances beyond his control. It was a lesson in the complexity of love and protection, a reminder that intentions can be hidden beneath secrecy. Each discovery led to more questions. Who had orchestrated her hidden life? Why had she not reached out on her own? And most importantly, what would happen when the truth finally surfaced? These questions weighed on him, yet the process of unraveling them taught him patience and strategic thinking, reminding him that understanding comes in layers. The detective helped him connect dots that initially seemed unrelated. Financial records, school enrollments, local acquaintances, all contributed to a narrative that revealed both careful planning and subtle care. It became clear that someone had devoted immense effort to ensure her safety, even at the cost of keeping a father in the dark. Emotionally, it was overwhelming. Tears came unbidden, a mixture of gratitude and heartbreak. He recognized the sacrifices made to keep her safe and the heavy burden she had unknowingly carried. The story revealed resilience on multiple levels. Hers, theirs, and his own, as he navigated years of uncertainty. He began to understand the delicate balance between protection and freedom. While she had been hidden, she had also been nurtured, educated, and cared for. The pieces revealed a life that was simultaneously constrained and enriched, a paradox that deepened his appreciation for the complexity of human decisions. The puzzle also offered lessons in perspective. Life's most important truths are rarely obvious. They require patience, careful observation, and a willingness to accept that understanding comes slowly. Each moment of discovery reinforced the importance of empathy, of seeing the bigger picture rather than reacting to surface appearances. Despite the emotional roller coaster, he felt closer than ever to the resolution he had sought for 9 years. Every clue, every fragment had brought him to the edge of understanding. The journey had transformed him, teaching lessons about love, persistence, and the power of human connection that he would carry forever. And just when he thought he had understood the puzzle, the most shocking revelation awaited him. A truth that would challenge everything he believed about the past, his daughter, and the people he trusted. He finally learned the truth about his daughter's life while she had been away. She wasn't missing in the way he had imagined. She had been living safely under careful watch, for reasons that shattered every assumption he'd held. It was a life hidden in plain sight, orchestrated to protect her from dangers he could scarcely comprehend. Every detail he uncovered challenged his understanding of trust and protection. The people responsible hadn't acted out of malice. They had acted from love, fear, and a desire to shield her from harm. He realized that love sometimes requires distance, that the harshest measures can sometimes preserve life rather than destroy it. The realization was both heart-wrenching and enlightening. 9 years of searching, of worry, of emotional turmoil, had led him to a truth that was more complex than he'd imagined. It was a reminder that life rarely offers simple answers, and that human decisions often carry layers invisible to the outside eye. He discovered that she had grown into a thoughtful, resilient young woman. Every letter, every report, every observation indicated she had been nurtured, educated, and guided, even while hidden from him. It was a bittersweet revelation. Pride in her strength mingled with sorrow for the years lost. The secret life also revealed sacrifices he had never anticipated. Someone had given up comfort, safety, and perhaps even reputation to ensure she thrived. It was a powerful lesson in unseen effort, reminding him that not all acts of love are visible, and that some of the greatest protections come from those who work quietly behind the scenes. Emotionally, he felt a whirlwind of relief, grief, and awe. His imagination had filled the years with fears and worst-case scenarios, yet reality was both stranger and more compassionate. The journey revealed the complexity of human choices, showing him that sometimes the truth is layered with intention, care, and difficult decisions. He also reflected on his own assumptions. How often had he judged situations without full knowledge? How many times had fear clouded his perspective? This revelation taught him humility, patience, and the value of seeking understanding before judgment, lessons that resonated far beyond this personal story. Despite the complexity, the clarity brought focus. He now knew where she had been, why she had been hidden, and who had been responsible for her care. The pieces aligned, forming a narrative both shocking and deeply human, a story of protection, secrecy, and resilience that no one outside could have predicted. And just as he began to process this truth, he realized that confronting the person responsible for orchestrating her hidden life would be inevitable. A confrontation that promised to reveal even deeper truths about the past and the choices that had shaped their lives. The moment finally came. The man responsible for orchestrating his daughter's hidden life stood before him, calm, composed, and unshaken by the years of separation. It wasn't a meeting filled with anger or accusations, but one that demanded understanding. Every word, every gesture, carried layers of intent he hadn't anticipated. As they spoke, the millionaire realized the depth of careful planning and sacrifice involved. The man hadn't acted out of malice, but out of a desire to protect. Each decision, though initially confounding, now revealed a logic rooted in love, fear, and caution. It was a lesson in perspective. Sometimes the choices we judge harshly are guided by unseen devotion. The conversation was tense but enlightening. Questions were asked, answers given with precision. Every explanation peeled back another layer of the mystery, illuminating motives and intentions that had remained hidden for nearly a decade. The billionaire saw the humanity behind difficult choices, the burdens carried silently to protect someone they cared about. He struggled with conflicting emotions. Gratitude battled frustration. Relief mingled with grief. The truth was shocking, but it was a truth grounded in care. He realized that understanding often comes before reconciliation, and that forgiveness requires the courage to look beyond initial anger. The man's calmness was disarming. Instead of defensiveness, he offered insight into the circumstances that led to every choice. He spoke of fear for the girl's safety, of threats unseen, and of a world that sometimes forces impossible decisions. The millionaire began to see the complexity of life beyond his own perspective. Emotionally, the billionaire felt speechless, not from anger but from comprehension. The confrontation revealed the depth of human intention, the weight of responsibility, and the lengths people go to protect the ones they love. Every word underscored the value of patience, empathy, and measured action. Through this interaction, he learned that power and wealth do not always grant insight. Understanding human motives requires listening, observing, and approaching situations with humility. He reflected on his own judgments and recognized the importance of seeing the full picture before reacting. The meeting left him with clarity but also with questions. How would he approach his daughter now? How much of the truth should be shared, and in what way? The confrontation had answered many questions, but it had also raised new challenges that required careful navigation. And as he left that tense, revealing meeting, he understood that the next step, deciding whether and how to reunite with his daughter, would be the most delicate and emotional decision of his life. Now he faced the hardest decision of all. The truth was laid bare, but revealing it to his daughter could alter her life forever. Every option carried weight. Every potential move could shape her future. He knew that love sometimes means stepping back, even when every instinct tells you to move forward. He thought about her life these past 9 years. The protection that had kept her safe also created distance. Would she want to see him now? Or would the life she'd built feel safer without his interference? The uncertainty was crushing, yet he understood that patience and empathy were as crucial as courage. He weighed the risks carefully. Revealing the truth too abruptly could overwhelm her, yet delaying might prolong unnecessary separation. He reflected on how best to approach a reunion that honored her autonomy, while also satisfying the profound need for connection and closure he had carried for nearly a decade. Each scenario played out in his mind. What if she rejected him? What if the emotional shock was too much? And yet, the possibility of holding her in his arms, of hearing her voice, was a beacon too powerful to ignore. He realized that love often requires calculated vulnerability and faith in the human heart. The retired detective reminded him gently that some decisions demand courage beyond fear. You can't control how she will respond, he said. You can only act with honesty, patience, and respect. That's all anyone can do. Those words became a guiding principle as he prepared for the next step, blending strategy with heartfelt emotion. He considered timing, setting, and approach. A quiet meeting in a neutral space, free from distractions, seemed best. He rehearsed mentally, imagining conversations that might occur, but also allowed for the unpredictability of genuine human response. Flexibility, he realized, was as important as planning. The weight of the choice was enormous. Every heartbeat reminded him of the years lost and the precious moments waiting to be reclaimed. Yet, beneath the anxiety lay a profound sense of purpose. This was the moment where love, resilience, and hope converged into action. As he prepared to make contact, he felt a mixture of fear, anticipation, and deep longing. The path ahead was uncertain, but his dedication, patience, and understanding had led him here. It was a testament to the power of persistence, empathy, and unwavering love. And finally, with everything aligned, he reached out, not knowing how she would respond, but ready to embrace whatever outcome came. Knowing that the next moment could transform both of their lives forever, the day finally arrived. She agreed to meet, and the anticipation was almost unbearable. He waited in a quiet, neutral space, every second stretching into an eternity. The room was simple, unadorned, yet it held the weight of 9 years of absence, longing, and unanswered questions. When she walked in, time seemed to pause. The years of pain, worry, and searching collapsed into a single moment. No words were needed at first, only the raw, unspoken connection of father and daughter, a bond that neither distance nor secrecy could erase. Tears flowed freely, mingling joy, relief, and the lingering ache of lost time. He noticed the subtleties. Her hesitant steps, the way her eyes searched his, the cautious smile that barely masked a storm of emotions. Every nuance told a story of resilience, growth, and adaptation to a life lived apart. It was a moment of recognition, not just of each other, but of the journey that had brought them there. The conversation was tentative at first, filled with pauses, questions, and careful exchanges. She wanted to understand, to piece together the years he had been absent, and he listened patiently, sharing what he could without overwhelming her. Every word was chosen with care, balancing honesty with empathy, creating a bridge over years of separation. Memories were exchanged, both painful and joyful. He recounted moments she had missed, yet celebrated her achievements from afar. She shared her experiences, the challenges she had faced, and the quiet victories that had shaped her life. Through dialogue, they began to rebuild not just familiarity, but trust and connection. The reunion revealed the power of patience, understanding, and timing. It wasn't a magical instant of perfection, but a fragile, evolving process. They learned that love sometimes requires space, time, and the willingness to embrace imperfection while moving toward healing. Small gestures carried profound meaning. A hand held, a shared laugh, a quiet acknowledgement of pain. These simple acts became the foundation of their renewed bond, proving that emotional connection is built in moments, not just words. Every glance and gesture spoke volumes, reflecting the journey they had endured. He realized that true reunion goes beyond presence. It requires empathy, acceptance, and the courage to face the past without letting it define the future. Their interaction was a delicate dance of emotions, a blend of joy, sorrow, and cautious hope, each step bringing them closer to the family they had lost and now sought to regain. And as the day ended, he understood that this reunion was only the beginning. Rebuilding trust and love would take time, effort, and patience, yet the foundation was laid. The path forward promised challenges, but also the reward of rediscovered connection, a journey of healing that could finally lead to shared happiness. Rebuilding their relationship wasn't instant. There were no shortcuts, no grand gestures of wealth or gifts that could replace lost time. Each day required effort, patience, and small acts of presence. Shared meals, walks, and quiet conversations. Trust had to be earned, moment by moment, through consistency and sincerity. He realized that being a father again wasn't about authority or control. It was about understanding, support, and guiding with empathy. Every laugh shared, every tear wiped away, was a step toward healing the invisible wounds left by years of absence. It was a process that demanded humility, love, and unshakable commitment. They created new rituals, small traditions that became theirs alone. From Sunday breakfasts to evening chats about their day, each act reinforced their connection. He saw the power in simple presence, the ability of everyday moments to rebuild what years apart had fragmented. These rituals weren't glamorous, but they were powerful. The millionaire reflected on the lessons learned throughout the journey. He understood that patience, resilience, and empathy were as valuable as any resource he had ever possessed. Money could not buy connection, and influence could not undo time lost. Only care, attention, and genuine love could restore the bond they now cherished. He witnessed her growth, celebrated her achievements, and supported her choices. In doing so, he realized that his role wasn't to shape her life, but to be a steady, loving presence she could rely on. This understanding deepened their relationship, fostering mutual respect and admiration, and strengthening the foundation of their renewed family bond. Emotionally, every reunion, every shared story, every moment of laughter felt miraculous. He often paused to reflect, grateful for the unexpected twists that had led him here. The journey had been painful, exhausting, and full of uncertainty, but the reward was immeasurable. A restored family, a daughter found, and love that endured beyond fear and time. They also learned the value of forgiveness, not as a simple gesture, but as a commitment to release past pain and focus on what truly mattered, the present and future they could build together. Forgiveness became a cornerstone of their relationship, allowing healing to flow naturally and honestly. In embracing this new chapter, he discovered something even greater than the truth he had sought for 9 years. The joy of being fully present, of witnessing growth, resilience, and the beauty of connection rebuilt. It was a lesson that transcended wealth, teaching that emotional richness comes from love, patience, and shared experience. And as they moved forward, each day was a choice to prioritize understanding, empathy, and time together. The past remained a part of their story, but it no longer dictated their lives. Instead, they faced the future with hope, resilience, and a bond strengthened by challenges, distance, and ultimately, reunion. In the end, he realized that no amount of money could bring his daughter back or erase the years lost. It wasn't wealth that solved the mystery or gave him closure. It was persistence, love, and the humility to listen, to understand, and to act with care. Every step, every painstaking decision had required patience far beyond anything money could buy. The experience reshaped his life in ways he could never have predicted. His priorities shifted from possessions and status to the value of presence, attention, and connection. He learned that true wealth is measured not in dollars, but in the moments we nurture with the people we love, and the effort we put into preserving what truly matters. He saw that resilience isn't just enduring hardship. It's about believing that even the longest separation, the deepest silence, and the most confusing twists can lead to healing. His journey taught him the power of hope, the strength in forgiveness, and the irreplaceable bond of family that endures beyond time, distance, and circumstance. And perhaps the most important lesson he carried forward: never assume the door is closed forever. Life often waits quietly, ready to open to those who are willing to knock again, to reach out, and to embrace patience, love, and understanding. Sometimes the miracles we seek have been waiting for us all along. If the story touched your heart, share it. Somewhere out there, someone is waiting for their own miracle, someone who needs a reminder that hope can endure even the darkest years. Subscribe for more stories that show what truly matters about love, resilience, and the human spirit. Hit the notification bell so you never miss the next inspiring journey, and remember, never stop believing in the power of hope.